So the Tarkovsky Watchathon continues. This time I watched 1972's Solaris. Now, people tend to think of this as the original Solaris and the George Clooney as the terrible remake, which I actually have not seen, so I can't say if it's terrible or not. But actually, Solaris, the novel by Stanislas Lem, was first adapted to Russian television 4 years before Tarkovsky made it. So, that whole point is that there are many versions of lots of things and that you should not call things remakes if they're based on a novel. They're just a different adaptation. That's the point I like to make anytime I can. This movie is a loose adaptation, apparently, and a good deal of the first third of the film is not in the book at all. This is a science fiction film that's very heady and very philosophical, and it takes place, I guess, maybe in the future, probably, since we have a space station and we have a planet that we're studying, but like, who knows? It's kind of like those Yorgos Lanthimos films where you're in a universe and you just go with it. So you're in this universe, you just go with it. A psychologist played by Donatas Benonis, known as Kelvin, is about to go to Solaris, the space station Solaris that is orbiting the planet Solaris, to see if everyone's all right. Beforehand, he's hanging out with his parents and watching video recordings of a retired pilot named Burton from many years earlier, because now Burton is an old man and this is young Burton, describing a strange situation that happened to him when he was on a recon mission flying over the oceans of Solaris. It's a big ocean planet. He is discredited. He has said that he hallucinated. There was one scientist who was like, but maybe, and they cut all the funding on continuing the scientific research and left a handful of people, which brings us to where we're at now in the film, except that's also like 40 minutes of the film. Once Kelvin gets to the space station, he starts having similar hallucinations or something like the man he had talked to earlier in the film. You later find out that it's spoilers. In order to know the plot, you have to have some spoilers. That it's the planet's reaction to some nuclear tests that the scientists did. Once they started testing nuclear weapons basically on the planet. It's not really explained why they needed to do that, but also why did we need nuclear weapons in our own planet, so who knows. The planet reacted by creating these manifestations of our memories into beings made out of something, because they're physical and they bleed and they feel like humans, but they are of creations of humans from our memories. So in Kelvin's case, and this is like the main thing most people know about Solaris, so if you don't already know this, like, what rock have you been under? His dead wife has come to be, which obviously freaks him out at first. And then the film sort of goes down this path of her realizing that she's not really human, but is she? And what is she? And why did the planet create her? And what is this weird symbiotic relationship that they have with each other, where she can only really exist with him because she's a manifestation of his memory, but then the longer she exists, the more human she becomes and the less of a manifestation and more agency she has. But at the same time, as she grows stronger in her own thing, he grows weaker. And it has, I feel like, a lot to say about relationships and how they can be mutually destructive for certain people. Maybe not for everybody, but for quite a few people, that's the case. You either have to give and take, or you have to, that's the metaphor there. It's also about the misunderstanding of, or miscommunications between beings. I think the novel apparently was supposed to really be about how if there were aliens that existed, they quite possibly exist on a wavelength and a realm and communicate in such a way that we would never be able to fully understand. And a lot of that ideas sort of didn't quite make it in here, because it's more about how we're unable to communicate with each other, not necessarily aliens. It also has a lot to say about the morality of science and um, the things that we create through mankind, even though the beings in this are created by the planet. It also has a lot to say about our memory and the way that people can get lost in memory. And some people lose their entire lives to memory, and other people reject memories altogether and just keep going. There's a lot going on in this movie. It is also 3 hours long, so it's in 2 parts. Much like Andrei Rublev, it is in 2 parts, and it's basically 2 movies. But you have to get through one movie to understand the other movie. So if this were made today, it would be like 3 movies, because they make 2 movies into 3 movies these days. Or a single book into 2 movies, and you're like, but why? That's all those teen movies. What else to say about this? It's beautifully made. It's gorgeous. I tweeted a checklist of Tarkovsky-isms, and it hit all of the ones that have been in all of the films except for the steamroller and the violin so far, which is, although the steamroller and the violin had some of these, which are water, reflections in water, horses, apples. Apples have been in all 4 of the movies so far, and apple and then half-eaten apples. Apples everywhere. Horses, apples, water. Someone standing in a field, a forest, and the back of someone's head. All of those things have been in almost all these movies. They will keep happening. Those are the things I'm going to always associate with Tarkovsky at this point. This is on DVD and Blu-ray from Criterion. I would get the upgraded version. It has the correct tinting on some of the scenes, but you can also watch it on Filmstruck right now. It's also on the Criterion channel side. It's definitely worth it. If you have Filmstruck, we have a music video by the band Failure. So, but I would recommend watching Solaris first, then the music video. The music video is a little bit spoilery. It's a really interesting film. It has a very interesting backstory. You can look into that on your own. I recommend it. I've got how many Tarkovskys do I have left? Several. 4, 8, not 8. There's 8 altogether. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 left. 4. I'm gonna make it. The Mirror, Stalker, Nostalgia, Sacrifice. I'm really bummed because they're about to show Stalker on the big screen here at the Midtown Art Theater. It just happens to be the same night that I'm seeing Grizzly Bear, so I'm not going to get to see it on the big screen, and I hear this new restoration is gorgeous. But thankfully, I get to watch it on Filmstruck, so all is well. There's 2 more shorts that were like student films that he made, and a documentary that I have to track down eventually, and then I'll have seen all of Tarkovsky and check off that from my list of cinephile musts. Yay, Tarkovsky.